Thank the honourable member for Bruce. Call the honourable member for Reid.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I seek your indulgence to make a statement.
It is granted.
Thank you. Well, it seems like yesterday, although it was 6 years ago and I stood right there, that I made my first speech in this place. And time flies when you're having fun and you're having a horrible time. It's been a hell of a journey. I'd only been to Canberra once before being elected as a federal member of parliament, and that was in 1982 for my Year 6 school excursion from St Pat's at Strathfield. To say I didn't have a political background is probably the understatement of anyone sitting in this place. It was a very, very steep learning curve. I remember coming down and walking into my office, and the first thing I looked for was there a fridge? Because after all, I am the son of a publican, the grandson of a publican. And I found the bar fridge there. And you could dead set fit 6 stubbies in it only. And I thought, this isn't going to be good enough. So I jumped in the car and I headed off to Harvey Norman, locally here in Canberra, and I bought a massive fridge. And I'm standing at the checkout, and the lady said, "Would you like it delivered?" And I said, "Yes, please." And she said, "Where to?" And I said, "Parliament House." And she said, "Whereabouts in Parliament House?" I said, "That's a very good question." So I googled how I ring Parliament House. I rang the switch and I said, "If I was to have a fridge delivered there, where would I get it delivered to?" She said, "The loading dock." And I said, "OK." So I said, "How do I get to the loading dock?" She said, "I can put you through." So I spoke to the gentleman at the loading dock and I said, "Mate, I'm going to have a fridge delivered there this afternoon. I'm in RG83. How do I arrange to get it moved to that office?" And he said, "Mate, I take the deliveries here, but once it lands on the loading dock, it's your responsibility." And I said, "Well, have I got something I can put it on?" He said, "We've got a trolley. And if I had $1 for every fridge I'd moved around in my life, I could retire tomorrow." So the first time I ran into Canberra staff, the amazing staff in Parliament House, was in the basement. And I don't know if any of you have been down the basement. It is a citadel. There are thousands of people running around the place. I've gone down to the loading dock, I've got a trolley, I've put the fridge on the trolley, I'm manoeuvring down the corridor, put it in the lift, come upstairs, and I've run into Alan. And Alan said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Mate, these fridges here, they're crap." I said, "I need a fridge that can handle some grog." And he said, right you are. He said, "Are you OK? Can I give you a hand?" I said, "No, I'm sorry." So I've moved the fridge in, and that fridge in RG83, that office, RG83, became, I didn't leave it there, became the social centre of that first term. For the class of 2013, it was right opposite the party room. In other words, I brought being a publican to Canberra, something I'm so, so proud of. When elected, I only owned one suit. It was charcoal because that was a blended colour. Why? Because I could wear it to weddings and funerals. I only had a couple of ties. In 23 years of working in my family's business, I never wore a tie. Why? Because in a punch-up, they're deadly. Yeah. You grab them, they pull them down, it's uppercut central. That's where I come from. And it's for that reason, with that zero background, that I want to start tonight by thanking the amazing staff here at Parliament House. I was so green, it ain't funny. And they have been so, so good to me. My father, my grandfather, our family business ethos, and we've been, touch wood, have been successful. The most valuable asset we have ever had at our disposal has been our amazing staff, and nothing could be truer of the set of the staff here at Parliament House. From the Clarks, David and Clarissa, Pete, James, Catherine Bronwyn, the two guys I dealt with in committees that I chaired, Stephen Boyd, Jerome Brown, the amazing Sergeant-at-Arms staff, Rod, Lynette, Mike and Tracy, for all the assistance you have given me over 6 years. I will never be able to say thank you enough for it. I was elected first as a local member, and I had a ball. It was obviously a great story. It was a seat that the Labor Party had held for some 91 years. I managed to pry it from their hands, and at the last election, when things didn't go so great for us in New South Wales, I managed to get returned with a swing to me which I will never forget. But as a local member, the thing that has struck me, and I've been one now for 3.5 of the 6 years, is that you can actually get stuff done locally. And some of the proudest achievements I look back at, I said in my maiden speech, we have a real issue in this country with multicultural aged care. We don't do enough in the space. And I know that at the 2013 election, the Lakemba Mosque had been promised money for an aged care centre, the Maronite community for an aged care centre. Both of those still have that money sitting in their bank accounts. I managed to convince Minister Fifield to get me money for the Auburn Mosque, the Gallipoli Mosque at Auburn, and it has now been opened. The Gallipoli Aged Centre, the first aged care centre, Minister Wyatt was with me when we opened it, the first aged care centre in Australia that is based in the Islamic faith. What a thrill, because it's not just the 96 bed licences that are in there, it's the fact that that joint has become a beacon for the whole community, offering out care right next to the mosque so people can practice their faith. This is the part of Sydney and the part of Australia that I proudly come from. West Connects, big projects, major infrastructure like West Connects, down to local roads, roundabouts in Burlington Street at Homebush. The scale of stuff you can actually get done for the local community. The local sports grounds, Abbotsford Soccer Club, Burwood Soccer Club, West Harbour Rugby Club, Strathfield Park, Sintra Netball. These are all things that have been delivered through hard work and advocacy, not peculiar to me, the same as we all do in this place, giving back to our local community. But I think as a local member, the highlight for me, and it was the irony of the time I was elected, was absolutely the Centenary of Anzac celebrations. In my electorate, we used that money, as I know you all did. Though, one of my war memorials was 105 years old. 95 years old. Centenary, wrong way. 95 years old. The footings were gone, the tuck pointing was gone, the roof was falling down. If you walked into it today, now looks like the Ritz and will be there for another 100 years. These are the amazing things you can deliver locally. My ministerial journey. First, as the Federal Minister responsible for multiculturalism, I dead set enjoyed this, given the profile and the makeup of my seat. Prime Minister Turnbull entrusted me with the role at a time, and sadly we've been dragged back into it at the moment, but at the time I got given that role, countering violent extremism, ISIS was brand new. It was front and centre. Islamic extremism was brand new. The Islamic community in Western Sydney and Western Melbourne felt under attack. And the solution wasn't through the Attorney-General's office or policing agencies. Yes, those communities worked hand in hand with them for intelligence, but it needed the soft sell. And Minister Morrison was smart enough, Minister Morrison at the time, now Prime Minister Morrison, was smart enough to understand through his connections with the community that was the place that those dollars need to be parked, and that was the place that these programs need to be developed. That was why I was so incensed given recently, and I spoke to Scott. I know how much Scott has done. I know the breadth and the strength of his connections in Sydney's Islamic community. I was with him the night after Tony, you and Jace forgive me, Speaker, there'll be a lot of names without seats tonight. I was at the Lakemba Mosque with the Grand Mufti, with Sheikh Shady, Samir Dandan, all of our friends in the Islamic community, and I saw them embrace you with open arms. I heard you listen to them. I heard you speak to them. So for anyone at the time, I was filthy, mate. That's what they were focusing on. When I know how much you've done for that community. I then moved on to industry, innovation and science. Christopher said it this afternoon, I was responsible for finishing off implementation of the National Innovation and Science Agenda. I had a ball. I ran into Glenys Beecham and her staff, I should say Finn Pratt and his staff in multiculturalism, but Glenys Beecham, her staff in industry, innovation and science. We had a lot of fun. That space is obviously extremely important, and we need to keep investing in it. Then I had the absolute pleasure, again in my maiden speech, and you've heard me tonight make mention of family business and my passion for it. I said to Bruce Bilson in my maiden speech that I thought the Minister for Small Business at that stage for 112 years had been misnamed. I thought that should be the Minister for Small and Family Business. And some 4 years later, I received a phone call from Prime Minister Turnbull, and he said, "Mate, we need you to do a couple of things." He said, "But we don't know what to call it." He said, "Small business, industrial relations and deregulation." And the first thing I said was, "Could we please call it small and family business?" And it's a unique thrill to not only say something in maiden speech and see it happen, but then to be the first ever minister that this country has ever had for small and family business. My great hope, whoever wins the next election, is that for the history of time to come in this country, family business is not forgotten. Because although family businesses may get big, they are still very much run through principles that were ingrained from when they were small. I would like to say in that time, in an economic policy, it was a real buzz, because it gave them the opportunity to drive culture through a change of culture through a department. I would argue, since Federation, so today, 118 years later, we have always, I reckon, tended to default in this place to our regulatory cap. That's how we think. How can we regulate? I would argue that we are, the government of the day, irrespective of which side, we are a business partner. Irrespective of, depending on your ownership structure, we own between 25 and 49% of that business. So the more we can do to get out of the way, reduce compliance costs, make it quicker and cheaper and easier, that line item in your profit and loss statement will decrease, the profit will increase, and guess what? We clip the ticket. We clip the ticket. And that will give us more revenue that we can then spend on essential services back in the economy. And it was that reason that one of my greatest thrills was when I pitched to Malcolm, can I use technology to simplify the way business interacts with government? He said, yes, you can. Kelly O'Dwyer gave me permission to take some of her stuff that she was doing, and we used and we worked with Victor Dominello in New South Wales. It used to take 18 months to open a bar, restaurant or cafe in the Parramatta LGA district, local government area, in New South Wales, in the country of Australia. You had to fill in and comply with 59 different forms. We asked, could we use technology, and Victor was right on board, as was Parramatta Council. It now takes you 3 weeks to open the same business. That's 17 months and 1 week that business is hopefully doing two things. Making a quid, we clip the ticket. Paying wages, we clip the ticket. And I do hope, and Ed, you and I have had this discussion, I do hope, and Michael, you mentioned this with policing and technology and the use, I do hope in our economic portfolios, especially as we do our 31 business registries, for example, in the next term of government, as we modernise those and move those into this century's structure, that we can have business front and centre of mind. My favourite parts of being an MP, first and foremost, the friendships. I'm thrilled to have so many people, I'm overwhelmed actually, to have so many people in the chamber tonight, on both sides of the aisle, and the independents. To my mates in the class of 2013, you have been an unbelievable team. We have dinners on Monday nights, each Monday sitting night. We've been each other's confidants. We gather together, we talk about what works and what doesn't. We have done from day one. We lost some comrades at the last election, and some of them are in the gallery here tonight. But we've all kept together and kept strong. To my mates in the Nationals, a very, very unusual crew. But I love them. I love them. As the son-in-law of a cattle farmer, I've always understood them. Yeah, exactly. But in terms of Christmas parties, singing karaoke with Matt Canavan, Jesse's Girl, something we did every year. No problems at all. You know the drama though. And this is the thing Australia doesn't see enough of. It's not just friendships that I've been lucky to make on this side. It's friendships that I've been lucky to make on the other side. And again, so thrilled to see so many here tonight. You've become great mates. A few, I am dead set. Reid is at the moment, an island of blue in a sea of red. And you'll all know in your own seats that the people you most interact with are your electoral neighbours. I'm surrounded by three blokes who have become real good mates. Albo, Tony Burke, who was a year ahead of me at St Pat's at Strathfield, and Jace Clare. I would see these blokes dead set out of here, a couple of times a week. And we've worked together, especially at times when parts of our communities were fractured and under pressure. We have worked together side by side to keep people calm on both sides of the fence, as well as locally. I do want to say to those three guys a special thank you for always putting party politics aside for the sake of the community. Again, something that's not seen enough. I do want to make special mention, Jace Clare is a great mate of my family's, and the measure of that bloke, the night after I got elected, I hadn't met Jace, but he's a great mate of Dad's. I got a phone call late at night from Jace saying, "Mate, this is going to be a whirlwind. Are you available for a cup of tea so I can run you through what is going to come at you, what I think you should do, how you should do it?" The measure of you, Jace, is not that just that you did that, but you and I have become great mates. You, Louis, and your little bloke have become great mates and will be great mates moving forward. My second favourite part of being a local member was immigration. And you win some and you lose some. We all know that, especially in our part of Sydney. The wins that stick with you. I had a Korean family 24 hours away from being deported because a migration agent had stuffed up a paper 10 years ago. With kids in selective high school and one kid playing golf for New South Wales under-16's female squad. And that family is still here today. The lose some, which are tough. I had a Pakistani guy who was full of bone cancer. We tried to get his wife and kids out of a camp in North Pakistan to come and basically say goodbye. I lobbied the minister at the time, offered to pick them up at the airport and make sure they got on the plane when they went home. But I knew I wouldn't win. And then ultimately Susan and I ended up buying that gentleman a plane ticket, a one-way plane ticket, sadly, full of medication to go home and die with his family. But my two biggest wins in immigration, without doubt, as far as I see it, were the increase in 12,000 additional Syrian refugees when it really got willing over there. It's still willing, but really got willing. The photo that Soph showed me at the time of a baby on the edge of the water, drowned, prompted me to talk to the relevant ministers, and we got a result. The second one, with my great mate, the member for Macmillan, who's here somewhere probably, was you and I went and saw you, Scott, and suggested that it might be a good idea to get the kids off Nauru. And you were good enough, mate, to do that. And I see that as a great win. My third favourite part is school kids. Why? Because quite simply, they are the hope of the side. And if you think God doesn't have a sense of humour, my last school visiting here today is Merredin in Strathfield, where my two daughters went through. And I think that's fantastic. The last of my favourite parts is citizenship ceremonies. The look on people's faces as they become Australian citizens, and talking to them after and listening to their stories, knowing full well that that day their stories become part of our story. What a thrill. The worst part of being an MP is, put simply, the fact that you are away from your family and you put them last. And you do. I mean, I would go to Annalise in December, as late as December, had her end-of-year assembly. And Annalise's, the reality is, in a marginal seat, and I was still up in the air, in a marginal seat, her school votes for me. There's no votes there. So I went to Concord High Schools, which clashed at the same time. Why? Because it's in a key swing zone of the electorate. And sadly, that's, there's a function or whatever you have to go to, that's often what you end up doing. A list of thank yous. Firstly, Mike Baird for inspiring me, challenging me and then supporting me non-stop from day one. He's the reason I'm here. John Brogden for not talking me out of it, although he took hours trying, and then supporting me through my pre-selection. Joe Tanos and Michael Photius for helping me with my pre-selection when I knew nothing of the Liberal Party. Neil Harley, who spent a year as my campaign director, then 4 years as my chief of staff, then got poached by Gladys Berejiklian to run her campaign 2 years ago, and I would have argued two Saturdays ago that I've always thought, and I thought this that time, he's one of the sharpest political minds I will ever meet, and I think the results Saturday week ago would pay testament to that. My two FEC presidents, Sandra Blackmore and Julian Vicari, have been amazing supports, as has all the rank and file in Reid for 6 years. They took me on trust. I came from the outside to within, and they decided to take a punt on me. I hope that I haven't let them down. Jules is also the Mayor of Strathfield, and I've worked closely with him. My two state members when I came into Parliament were Libs, John Sidoti, who is still there and promoted last week to the ministry, so well deserving, such a good mate, my Italian brother, and him and his family have been a great support. Charles Cascicelli, who was there 11 to 15, but sadly lost in 15. Charles was amazing support through that time. His replacement, Jodie Mackay, cut from the other side of the cloth, but Jodie and I have worked, she's a wonderful local member that I've worked closely with to come up with local solutions on. Mayor John Faker and Angelo Sarakis, again Labor mayors who I've worked closely with to deliver for local communities, as well as Mayors Ronnie Ewick and Ned Addick. I want to say a big thank you to my former industry. In the gallery tonight we've got John Whelan, Steve Ferguson, Dave Curry, Anthony Ball, Anthony Tremaci. Clubs and pubs and the hospitality industry more broadly were two things. One, amazed that I was crazy enough to want to do this, but secondly, never stopped supporting me. Guys, thank you very much, and to the industry more broadly. To all of my staff, I've got two lots obviously. My EO staff, two vintages. The first iteration, 13 to 16. Neil Harley I've mentioned. Dom Mioli's up there tonight. John O'Borman, Dave Tanti, Mike Morrow came on board. Alex Lucas has been a mainstay over the 6 years. He's here with his parents tonight. And Sneha Subrahmanyam, Mark Snape, amazing, became part of the family. Welcome to family business, guys, albeit politics. Then the second iteration was Vanessa Papastavros, Olivia Simpson, Matt Harrington, Aaron, who runs my life. You know, guys and girls, thank you very much for the 6 years of working with me and putting up with me. My ministerial staff, again, a lot of them in the building tonight to watch their old boss. Jodie, Tamsin, Jen, David, you know, you're all amazing. Melissa couldn't be here, she's overseas. Angus is in a state. You know, fantastic, fantastic people. The rank and file I've mentioned. Finally, my friends. Manning booths is a tough gig in a marginal seat, especially with an ageing conference, and I've had friends turn out in droves. The first one wasn't too bad because the campaign was in spring. The second one was brutal because it was 8 weeks long and in winter. But I had friends turn up in big numbers who believed in me and wanted to support me, and I will be eternally grateful. My final thank you is to my family. They have been, and they've thrown me a little off kilter because I only thought Suze was coming today, but I've ended up with two of my three kids, Soph and Charlie. My father, Arthur, he's probably more comfortable on your side over there, guys. So's Johnny Whelan, by the way. And my father-in-law, Paul Crowe. I spoke about them all extensively, and they're now, 6 years older. So they were here. Charlie's now almost 21, Soph 20. So they were here at 14 and 13 when I made my maiden speech. And I said at the time, and I think if you look up and you look at them tonight, not only if what I said then was true, I think it's even more true tonight. I'm just blessed. I'm doubly blessed. They not only take after their mum, they look like her too. Suze, my final thank you is to you. You were crazy enough to let me turn our life on its head. We have had some good times and some bad, but we've got through, and I look forward to the challenges that we face in the future, and I'm very excited about coming home. I wanted to close by quoting one of the closing paragraphs in my maiden speech, and I said, "We are all ultimately a product of our upbringing and our education, and I have been blessed to attend 3 magnificent schools. The mottos of these three schools have always been a guide to the way I've lived my life. They best capture the way I will work to repay the faith that the people of Reid have shown in me. At Santa Maria del Monte in Stratford, it was Veritas, which means truth. At St Patrick's College in Stratford, it was Luceat Lux Vestra, which means let your light shine. And at St Joseph's College at Hunters Hill, it was in Meliora Contende, which means strive for better things. In representing the people of Reid, I will search out and speak the truth. I will let my light shine strongly for my constituents. And I will strive for better things within my community. Mr Speaker, I'd like to think I did so without fear or favour. I'd like to finish by wishing Scott, you and the team, all the very best. I've been blessed to serve under you as Prime Minister, Malcolm as Prime Minister. Obviously Malcolm is an extremely close mate, and what happened in August last year was tough. And I, to his credit, Tony Abbott worked tirelessly to get me elected in the first place. And you know, for those of you that are prepared to write him off in the seat of Warringah, I think you can think again, because I think I absolutely respect the guy, and he's a fighter from sun up to sundown. I wish you all the best with what comes. I wish everyone in this chamber all the best. I laughed with Paul Fletcher. I don't know if Fletcher's here. I laughed with Paul Fletcher not long ago in question time. There's a common complaint when you leave politics that your phone stops ringing. I looked at Fletcher and I said, if only I would have that problem. I like good people. I've been surrounded in this place on both sides by good people. If I can ever be of assistance to any of you, if it's on your side, it'll probably be through Dad. But if I can be of assistance to any of you moving forward, please don't hesitate to give me a yell. I want to finish by saying you can't go to a Laundy family function and not have karaoke. It's just a given. My father's theme song is My Way. Normally he's the one that sings it. Tonight I'm borrowing it. I wanted to finish by saying the record shows I took the blows and did it my way. Thank you.